everybody, today I am driving, courtesy of channel fan and all-round good guy Samid, a 2015 Ford Focus ST. I've always actually quite liked the looks of these. In fact, I think I prefer them over the RS. But for some reason or another, these never really found the same instant success that the old Mk3 ST did. Now, that car with its fire-breathing, turbocharged 5-pot engine was an instant hit. Everybody loved and still loves those cars, but they are deeply flawed things, and for a fairly reasonable sum you can now get yourself into something a bit like this. Samid picked this up last year and it was pretty much the cheapest Mk3.5 out there at about £11,000. Why is that? The simple fact that it already had about 90,000 miles on the clock. But honestly, looking at it and sitting in it, you really wouldn't know. This car is in very good condition and is a prime example of why sometimes buying a high mile car can be a good thing. This was serviced bang on time, in fact twice yearly by Ford, and it almost certainly lived a life mostly on the motorways, which is a fairly gentle existence for a car. I'd far rather have something with 100,000 motorway miles on it than 30,000 London miles. The ST has a very difficult job to do because, broadly speaking, you're going to find two types of customer for this kind of car. People like Samid, young people for whom this is their one and only car. Alternatively, you're going to get maybe slightly older or more well-heeled people that have already got their weekend fun toy, a Caterham, an Elise, a motorbike, something like that, and this is the daily wheels. In both of these cases, the car therefore has to be not just fun, but also practical. This has to be a real, genuine all-rounder, and that is a very difficult task to pull off. So let's begin with perhaps the most important stuff, the boring bits. This ST has a 2-litre 4-cylinder engine, yes I know, no longer a 5-pot, and it puts out about 250 horsepower. This one, on the engine front, is entirely standard. Torque is fairly healthy at about 270 pound-feet. And you can get them in a choice of body styles, either the 5-door hatch like this, or there was also an estate. I am not a Ford expert, so if I do make mistakes throughout this, please do take pity on me and put a nice comment down below highlighting where I've gone wrong. The sole choice of gearbox is a 6-speed manual that I have to say is rather nice to use. This one's had a little carbon fibre shift knob attached to it, which I actually kind of like. It looks alright, a little bit tarty, but I am card-carrying tart, so I do rather like it. This is an ST3. In Ford world, you generally get a few different trim levels, so you get I think ST1 might be the base, then ST2, ST3. So some of the features you get with the ST3, and maybe some others as well, you get heated front screen, you get these beautiful leather Recaro seats. I think all of them get Recaros, but this one gets a full leather, and they are superb. There's two things Ford always seem to get right in their fun cars, that's seats and steering. And I can tell you, just from the brief time I've experienced this car, that's no different here. Seats, wonderful, they're very supportive, also extremely comfortable, and the steering is magic. Now in the 3.5 you also got a revised infotainment system, which I have to say is very, very much better than the old one, which is kind of like the one you got in the original Mk3 Fiesta, the million-button Sony thing that was absolutely impossible to use. This one is a little touchscreen, much more up-to-date, plenty of functions, you get Bluetooth, all that jazz, so it does what you need it to. You have some Sony speakers in here, although Samid tells me that he hasn't seen many other STs with those, so this may have been an optional extra. Space is a bit of a mixed bag. The rear seats are pretty generously sized. You can get most adults in there fairly comfortably, but the boot is a bit smaller than I was hoping for. There's all sorts of stuff under the boot floor, so the actual sort of general storage space you've always got available to you is a little on the disappointing side. In fact, something like a Golf is going to be much better. This feels almost like my BMW 1 Series in terms of storage space. The suspension is totally standard. In fact, the only other modifications to the car beyond the shift knob are a resonator delete for the exhaust, but I'm happy to say that actually it doesn't sound silly, crazy. It's had no pops and bangs remap. This just sounds like you think the car really should. And it's had a couple of cosmetic bits, a little front splitter and a side skirt as well. And I actually think they really do enhance the look of the car. This race red suits it really well, and I've got to say the overall styling of it I'm really very much in love with. Other boring bits to know, well, fuel economy is all right. You get, as a general average, or more accurately, Samid has got as a general average, about 32 to the gallon. That's with a mix of driving. That's pretty much bang on what you'd kind of expect for this sort of car. Visibility is good, if not great. Out the rear is actually okay, and the rear three-quarter is good thanks to quite a bit of glass in the car. But this A-pillar here has got a fairly steep angle to it, and it's pretty chunky. Not the worst I've encountered, but you do just need to keep your wits about you. This also feels like a very big car. You know, sat quite low down, you have no idea what the bonnet is doing, so if you are a brand new driver, can be a little bit intimidating. As a brand new driver, you're unlikely to be driving an ST, but I'm pretty confident this is the same as every other Mk3.5 Focus. Jittery ride and poor boot space aside, the car, I'd say, does a decent job as a daily driver. Gearbox, nice and slick, easy to use. The clutch, brake, throttle, they're all nicely weighted. Clutch is actually pretty good. Some cars now have one that's far too light. This doesn't. I like it just the way it is. For a daily driver, it's spot on. But that's only half of the equation, isn't it? That's the boring, ordinary day-to-day stuff. This car still needs to be able to put a big smile on your face down a back road. That's something that the Fiesta ST is absolutely phenomenal at doing. So can Big Brother replicate any of that kind of enjoyment? Let's see. Well, many decades of chassis development clearly hasn't meant an awful lot to the people that built this car, because torque steer is very much present and correct. Only once you really get up to sort of national speed limit where the car sorts itself out, at every single point up until then, this is a squirrely little so-and-so. But that doesn't really matter all that much. Other cars have the same issue. A limited slip diff could sort this out, or make it a lot worse. Never sure which way it's going to go, really. But as a fun car, this is absolutely superb. It's miles more enjoyable than my 130i out of the box. I mean, by a long way. There are other issues. Brakes, a little bit too sensitive. So I find myself doing that a bit more than I want to. Heel and toe doesn't come the most naturally, but I've only really tried to do it a few times. You can sense that it will eventually do what you want it to. The suspension does really start to work with the road once you do begin to press on, and you can really carry some quite serious pace in this thing. Steering is superb. This chassis is so keen to turn in. Now, it's maybe not quite as nimble as the Fiesta, but that's simply a function of physics. Not an awful lot the Ford boys can do about that. My life, this thing really eggs you on. Brakes way too keen. That's the biggest dynamic failing of this car. Engine's pretty good too. Let's give its response as a test. So let's get it to say, oh, we're at 3 and a bit thousand RPM. Let's slow it down a wee bit, shall we? So let's get her into third gear, 40 mile an hour. We're doing 2,700 revs, something like that, and foot down. Yeah, just a moment of, just like a real, just tiny moment of delay. Nothing at all to be concerned about. Pulls cleanly through the rev range, and I don't feel like I'm upsetting all and sundry either. This is a car that's very well judged. Whenever people bring me something like this, you know, a hot hatch, I'm always a little bit worried, especially when I know it's owned by a young person, because they don't always know how to keep things, well, let's be honest here, tasteful. I'm delighted to say that Sameed's Focus ST is a perfect blend of fun and daily. You notice other little nice touches in here too. I love the little door guard. This is something every car should have, absolutely every car. It's something that Ford do. I think it's a very, very cheap option. Dealer fit might be standard on this particular model, but it's just a wonderful invention that seems to solve a very common problem, especially in this kind of car. Let's face it, you're going to have kids and whatnot, and they're probably going to bash the door at some point. So having that's good. You've even got adjustable cup holders. I mean, I never even considered that as a thing that someone would need, but now I've seen them, I want them. There's even little bits of random storage in the back seat, so you can store all your little odd things that, as a family person, you may well have. I've got absolutely no issue with this engine whatsoever. Sounds all right. Like I say, it's a little, for some, I suspect this is probably too quiet and they want it to pop and bang. I just don't. I'm very happy with this exactly as it is. No issue with the pace out of it. Very happy to use the mid-range. If you want to rev it out, you certainly can. Although there's no particular reward for really doing so. You get to about $4,500, you might as well just change up and ride that mid-range torque. That turn-in is awesome. So keen, but you just got to watch out, because with that traction problem that this car has, it will then wash wide, could go all a bit Pete-tong rather fast. As a one car does all, there are some creaks and rattles to remind you that you are in a Ford, but stick the stereo on, open the window, do something, drown those out. I've got lots of other cars cost a lot more money that creak and rattle. This is not really a problem. This thing is a riot. If you are currently on the hunt for something that is going to be that sort of one car which does all, I know everyone says that the Fiesta ST is by far the more fun. This is absolutely no slouch. I can have a hell of a time in this. It's usefully larger. I think it's a great looking car, and perhaps most importantly, this doesn't seem to have been bought by the same people that bought the Fiesta STs. I love the Fiesta STs. A lot of my friends own one, but I couldn't do it. And I'll be honest, it's because of the image that the car has and the people that buy it. I just couldn't do it. But this doesn't really seem to have been picked up by the same crowd, at least not where I live anyway, which means that this is a car that I could buy and feel a lot more respectable in. Those that watch the channel will know the kind of things that I currently have on the driveway, and it is no exaggeration to say that if I owned one of these too, and it was the kind of day where I needed to use it, I would feel absolutely no shame whatsoever in picking up the keys for the Focus ST, nor would I actually feel like I was getting less of the driving experience, certainly not on those kind of roads. It's not going to attract the attention of some of the other cars I have or make the same kind of racket, but that's not what you always want. And for those people who've already got something that's, you know, quite exciting and fruity, this is a wonderful counterpart. And in many ways, this is actually another example of a car that is a lot more fun than much more expensive machinery. Ford Focus ST, thumbs up. The Focus ST has just bought itself a fast track ticket into my favourite hatches of all time. That's how much I like this car. Thanks all for watching. Please like, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you all for the next one. Bye bye.